Ever wonder why some small businesses seem to have this secret sauce for success, while so many others just disappear? Well, today we're cracking the code. We're going to dive into a fascinating study that put businesses that survived side by side with those that failed to uncover the real, evidence-backed keys to resilience. First things first, let's just get a sense of the stakes here. According to the Center for the Development of Business Competitiveness, a whopping 75% of small businesses in Mexico fail before they even hit their second birthday. Think about that. That's 3 out of every 4. So this brings us to the million-dollar question, right? With a failure rate that high, what on earth are the surviving 25% doing that's so different? What is their secret? All right, to solve this mystery, we have to start with the data. And honestly, the numbers paint a pretty stark picture of the challenge that these small businesses are up against. And this isn't just a feeling people have. The data confirms it. In just a 2-year span, Mexico saw a net loss of 400,000 small businesses. More were closing up shop than were opening. That makes figuring out the key to survival more urgent than ever. To get some real answers, you can't just look at the big national numbers. You've got to zoom in. And that is exactly what a team of researchers did in a really detailed study of businesses in San Pedro Cholula, Mexico. Now, the businesses in this study are what we call MSMEs. That stands for micro, small, and medium enterprises. These are the absolute engine of local economies. They create so many jobs. So you can imagine when they fail, it has a huge ripple effect on entire communities. Okay, so here's the core of the investigation. The researchers created 2 distinct groups. On one side, you have 416 businesses that were still open and running, and on the other, 127 that had unfortunately closed for good. By comparing these two, they could start to pinpoint the exact differences that lead to survival. The researchers had a hunch. They hypothesized that the answer was hiding in how these businesses approached a single, powerful concept: innovation. So they started digging for evidence. Their method was actually pretty simple, but really effective. They just surveyed the owners from both the open and the closed businesses, asking them to rate their own innovation activities on a scale from 1 to 5. The goal was to see which habits made a real, measurable difference. And the very first clue they found? Wow, it was a big one. There was this massive gap in how these businesses thought about being unique. The survivors overwhelmingly prioritized offering innovative products specifically to stand out from the competition. The ones that failed, not so much. Statistically, this was a highly significant difference. And the researchers really hit the nail on the head with their conclusion. They said that this focus on innovation was a core competitive advantage. For the businesses that made it, innovation wasn't just some buzzword. It was a powerful tool that helped them thrive. Okay, clue number 2 is just as telling. The survivors were way more likely to create new products based on what their customers were actually asking for. They weren't just in a back room guessing what people wanted. They were out there listening and, crucially, responding. And this is so important because it shows us that successful innovation isn't just a random shot in the dark. The businesses that made it were deeply connected to their market. They didn't just collect feedback. They actually built systems to turn those customer whispers into their next big product, which kept them incredibly relevant. The third key difference they found was all about looking outside their own 4 walls. Surviving businesses were significantly more likely to attend trade fairs, take courses, and go to conferences. They were actively seeking out opportunities to learn and connect with others. So you can see the pattern here, right? The businesses that closed tended to be more isolated. The survivors, on the other hand, had this proactive mindset. They understood that the best ideas and the most valuable connections are often outside their own buildings, and they actually invested the time and effort to go out and find them. So let's just recap the evidence. To make sure all this wasn't just a fluke, the researchers ran statistical tests. And they confirmed that, yes, there was a proven, meaningful gap between the survivors and the failures in 5 key areas. And that first one, innovating to be different, was the most critical factor of them all. Okay, we've examined all the clues. Now let's assemble them into something practical. Let's build the playbook that gives small businesses the absolute best chance of survival, based on this evidence. When you boil it all down, it comes to 4 key actions. Number 1, listen intensely. Turn your customer needs into your product roadmap. 2, differentiate deliberately. Make your unique value the absolute core of your strategy. 3, network actively, because your next big idea might just come from a conversation at a conference. And finally, number 4, organize for innovation. Be willing to actually change your internal processes to support all those new ideas. So, what's the big takeaway from our investigation into small business survival? Let's wrap this up with one final thought and, of course, the source for this whole explainer. At the end of the day, this research reveals a really clear innovation gap between the businesses that make it and those that don't. The survivors are proactive, they're customer-focused, and they are committed to being different. The ones that fail are often more passive and more isolated. And that leaves all of us with a really critical question. Which side of that gap is your business on? The source material for this explainer was the 2023 study titled Determining Factors in the Closure of MSMEs in the Municipality of San Pedro Cholula, an analysis of the effect of innovation strategies. It was written by Moreno Vazquez, Lozada Lechuga, Fierro Xochitl, and Ramirez Rosas, and published in the International Research Journal of Engineering and Technology. Thanks for joining me.